Welcome to the Longevity Protocol with Dr. Cristina Bosch and Dr. John A. Robinson. We'll be your guides to uncovering the secrets to optimal health, better sex, and happiness. From debunking aging myths to exploring the science behind what it means to live the Longevity Protocol, we'll dive into a wide range of topics. So, get ready for an exhilarating journey in what it means to live well and feel your very best at any age. This is a very interesting, if not controversial, topic today. We're going to be talking about sex, sexuality, and Christianity. And before we get started, I would like to officially disclaim a disclaimer here and letting everyone know it's important to state that both Cristina and I are Christians. We present this topic in a cultural and social context and not a religious one. This topic is important in the context of sexuality for both Christians and non-Christians. Simply using the word sex and Christianity in the same sentence can be very challenging, if not sacrilegious, for some believers. We do not intend to offend, but to enlighten for the sake of improving health, sex, relationships, and sexual wellness. This topic, I think, is really important for everybody. It's not just about Christians. This is about our Westerners, let's say. And we have so many hang-ups about sex. A lot of times those hang-ups come potentially even from a good place, from people who might be Christian, and they think that there's something wrong with talking about it based on some of these concepts. So we're going to talk about that today. I'd like to talk about the original sexual revolution and sex in the Bible. And we're going to talk even about passages within the Bible that relate to sex within the context of a man and a woman in marriage. That's the context. Certainly within marriage, we can say. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
Okay. I mean, first of all, I don't really think this is a controversial topic.
I'm glad you're saying that.
Yeah, I don't. And I also want to add that we're talking about it as Christians from a book that is at the foundation of the Christian religion. But I do think...
And the foundation of Western thought, again, whether people realize it or
absolutely,
not. Absolutely,
yes.
Yeah.
But I do think that these are concepts that many spiritual people or people of faith, whatever that faith may be, struggle with. I'm not an expert in theology by any means, especially of other religions around the world. I know lots of Christians, Catholics, of course, which are Christians, and Jews, but I've known like a handful of Muslims in my entire life. That's just been the geocentricity of my upbringing. So I'm making these statements. I'm just inferring these statements on what I believe from the little bit that I've seen, learned, and
your own personal perspective.
Personal. But yeah. I think this is applicable to just all people who have a faith and belief in a higher being that is guiding their behavior.
That's a good way to put it. With all of that said, there are very specific things to Christianity.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Yeah.
And Judaism that really shaped a lot of what we think about with sex today. I want to start off with the original sexual revolution. We tend to say sexual revolution, of course, think about the 1960s.
Hippies in the 70s?
60s.
Okay, 60s.
It went into the 70s, but certainly started in the 60s. So I'm talking about all of this in terms of a historical context. And what was really interesting in researching all of this, there's something called pederasty, which is child love. So it's not just as simple as saying pedophilia, but child love, this concept of that. And it would have been 2,000 plus years ago thought as, okay, the Athenians and other the Greeks, cultures. Ancient antiquity cultures would have thought, yeah, this is what, there's child love, loving a child in that intimate way.
Sexual intimacy is what you're talking about.
This is what I'm talking about. Yeah. And, relationship, having, even beyond just it's like a full blown relationship
Mhm.
would have been thought of as okay. And it wasn't until actually Jews would say, and Christians would say it wasn't called child love, it was called child destruction.
Mhm.
So it was early on at that point where they said, no, this is not good. And that was one particular thing that was part of that initial sexual revolution. The second thing then, now specific to Christians, was that Christ then said it's one man, one woman, but it's for life.
Mhm.
So in Matthew chapter 19, he's discussing, no, this is for life. You're all in.
Mhm.
So much so that the disciples were like, wow, this sounds pretty tough. Like, I don't know. And then Jesus was like, well, yeah.
It's easier to be
okay.
committed to God than it is to be committed to a woman.
Basically, that is kind of what he was saying.
That's funny.
So
Probably true.
because he was saying how incredibly important that concept of for life was. So
Mhm.
that was also revolutionary
Mhm.
at that time now, roughly 2,000 years ago. But I think that the most important thing that I think sort of transcends people, again, whether they're Christian or not, but it is something that's very biblical. The third thing that occurred in this sexual revolution was that Christ said that both men and women have equal sexual authority over one another. And we're going to define the word authority, but that it was equal.
I mean, that's sexual revolution.
Right there in itself. Yeah, because it wasn't that way prior to that. But there was because prior to that, everyone talks about, the patriarchy now and how, and it is true within certain things, there would have been sort of this domination that men would have had over women sexually, even in the bedroom and through marriage. But that wasn't at all what Christ was saying 2,000 years ago. It just took us almost 2,000 years to kind of catch up with that. But basically, to sort of read this from 1 Corinthians chapter 7, the husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. That's like,
Well, that's like, I am my beloved and my beloved is mine.
mhm.
So when I say it like that, it's romantic. When I say
Like, yeah,
authority,
right.
then suddenly people edit the second part, the balancing part of the sentence.
Well, it's funny you say that. So you just said the beloved is mine. There's a sort of ownership to that. And the word authority comes from the Greek word idios, which means one's own, private, personal, beloved. That same concept you're saying. It's not at all about owning someone.
Well, it's not about treating that person as an inanimate object that you've acquired.
Of course.
And this is the thing about language. I mean, language it's so beautiful, and words have meaning, words have power, and there are differences. There's specific reason why we choose the words that we choose. What is it about the Inuits, how they have like 200 words for snow?
Yeah.
There's I like, I love, I desire. Those are 3 different words with 3 different emotions. So when we're looking at the word authority, if we're going to simplify it, if we're going to be one-dimensional and perhaps a bit too modern, then we're missing the power of the concept of owning my husband and being owned by my husband.
That is, it's just, even when you say it, it's just really profound. And I think it's been, for us personally, a deep part of our relationship of seeing it that way. It certainly makes it riles me up. I mean, I certainly get very protective about it, physically protective about that concept, protective of you, but almost spiritually protective. There's a responsibility in that, in a partnership now, that we should have that level of responsibility for one another. It's very deep and profound.
There's a responsibility, and like Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man, with great
power comes great responsibility.
Comes great responsibility and reward. So we had done an episode where we talked about body image, and one of the things we talked about was that notion of feeling trusting of your partner when they say I love you, feeling vulnerable with your loved ones so that you can receive love. This is the ultimate testament of that. If I am open to being filled as a vessel of love and attention and your sense of duty, then I am able to reciprocate because I don't have the responsibility of being self-focused.
And this is just what, it's what men are looking for. They're looking for what you just said there. I mean, I'm sure women are too.
For
It's one of the guys here listening. This is what they really want. And there's more to it.
Okay.
So, okay, that's putting down that idea of a true sexual revolution. There's also many things in the Bible about sex. A lot of it inevitably is about, the immorality of sex and debauchery and those type, meaning when it's done outside of context of marriage or it's done in some kind of excess, adultery, all those kind of concepts are there in abundance, of course. But that's not what we wanted to focus on here.
No, and also I just want to say that I know you don't necessarily agree with me on this, but a lot of the emotion attached with that is man imposed. This is, human is what I mean by a man. Human interpretation based on the times. During the Inquisition, the interpretation of this would have been different. During the Puritans and starting the colonies and the Scarlet Letter would have been a different interpretation. Now it's a different interpretation. So I do think that even those chapters that can be that have the words like immorality, they carry different emotion based on the times. So kind of take that a little bit with a grain of salt.
Of course, yeah, it's always about what they're choosing to filter.
Right.
You ignore one part
and
to,
how it serves you.
Of course.
Okay, but
I think what's important, though, within the Bible and what's very clear in most of these passages, the biblical goal of sex is to become one flesh. That sex is a gift from God. But there's even more to that, and we'll get into it. It's not just that it was a gift from God, but that gift presents a key. And we'll talk about that in a second. I think, as a Westerner, we see sex mostly in two key ways. We're going to see sex as an idol. We're going to say, we kind of separate it out away from God, and then that becomes the thing. So we're like super obsessed with it. That's what's so strange about, we've got these puritanical approaches to everything, while at the same time we download more porn than any other country in the world.
Right.
And
that's why,
right,
because we've taken intimacy and spirituality away from it,
and God out of it. And so the other side, that puritanical, is sex is taboo. It's like, whoa, we can't talk about that.
Right.
Which is what you and I have been attempting for now 18 years in our practice to dispel all of that, and to allow patients or anybody to have an open, honest conversation about sex, sexual intercourse, relationships, sexuality as an overarching concept. And when I say overarching, then, because it's got mental, emotional, physical, and now we're suggesting even spiritual context, because where we're thinking it's either extreme sex as idol or extreme sex as taboo.
As bad.
There's another way to look at it.
Yeah.
And the other way to look at it is that it is an actual connection with God.
Right. We have critiqued, I know I speak about this quite a bit. I have critiqued so many times how in our culture nowadays, there is this overt sexuality, this idolization of sexuality, but because of the elimination of the spiritual and intimacy and God, it exists at the same time as the taboo, because the intimacy and the beauty of it and the communication of it is gone. So when we're looking at it this third way, how are we looking at it?
Well, like I was saying before, that it's where we say it's a gift from God, having sexual urges, impulses, abilities, all of these things that you just sort of come into this world largely equipped with. That's part of the gift, but the real gift is that it is a key or a doorway to an actual connection, taste of God, and how we can begin to understand that what's presented in the Bible. So the other sort of aspect of the biblical thing. And I mean, you and I talked about this. I've always known about the Song of Songs, Solomon, King Solomon, the Book of Solomon, and the Song of Songs, but did not really remember and understand that this particular poem, because that's what it is pretty racy. I mean, it's pretty direct about, and it's overtly sexual.
It's no.
Well, how would you say?
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say sensual.
Sensual. Okay, that's a good way to put it. That's a better way to put it.
Because it's a lot of imagery.
A lot, yes.
It's a lot. I mean, again, it's a poem. It's like, it could be Shakespeare's sonnets or Pablo Neruda. I mean, or some of our favorite songs. You think of some of the lyrics from Shakira or the Beatles, or some of the best books written, Catcher in the Rye. Like, whenever you think about works of arts, what you're seeing there is that key that you're referencing. What you're seeing there is man's, and again, that means human, man's desire to experience something higher. You want to be closer to God.
Mm-hmm.
You want to, I just saw something funny the other day that isn't about sex, but it reminds me of this, that a woman said she always buys lottery scratch-offs when she flies because she says she thinks it's good luck to do it when you're closer to God. And that when you're in a plane, you're higher up. Remember Laura Ingalls when the little baby died and she went up on the mountain. She went up on the mountain to pray to God. I mean, humans instinctually are searching for that feeling of enlightenment and connection.
Mm-hmm. And that's ultimately what, and so the sensuality that you're referring
of Solomon's book.
Yeah, it sort of leads you into that.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. So, so everybody understands this book, the Song of Songs, is a man and a woman and a chorus.
Right, like a Greek tragedy.
Yeah, it's like that. And so she's saying, I'm getting ready. I'm getting ready to get ready. And
so they're about to get married.
They're about to get married. It's the whole process that leads up to that. So really when they're talking about what they're observing of their beloved, the physical nature of what they're observing of their beloved, it is before they were married. It's kind of leading all up. It's the crescendo of all of it. And then the chorus is interplaying and then kind of rooting them on along the way.
Right.
And then it leads all the way into literally the bed chamber and, the wedding chamber. And then they consummate the thing essentially. Again, with being cheered on.
Right.
And so it's also been said, is it the chorus or is that God? Although what's interesting about this book is there's only a couple of books. This is one of them in the Bible that actually doesn't mention God directly.
Yeah.
And this is an Old Testament book.
And the chorus, of course, could be that internal dialogue that, I mean, insert whatever you want.
Well, they were almost saying, like, if you look at it sort of practically or literally, it would be the sort of community around them. They're in their village kind of going, this is all good.
But from an imagery perspective, sometimes
allegorical standpoint. Yeah, right. Yes.
It's a little concrete. Yeah.
So, yes, because the Song of Songs is seen as an allegory. It's seen as a representation of God's love for his people, or it can just be seen as this poem, among lovers. And so, again, relatively racy, for those listening, I will say that historically Jews would not allow their children to read the Song of Songs until they were older, just based on how it all plays out as a poem. So what I would like to do is just read a few things, the few passages from it, and I encourage everyone to check it all out. But this will give you a little bit of a flavor. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your anointing oils are fragrant. Draw me after you. Let us run. The king has brought me into his chambers. I mean, I don't know. Like, what are you supposed to say about that?
I don't know. Grab grapes and a glass of wine and read on.
You like that, huh? Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a doe, grazing among the lilies. Until the day wind blows and the shadows flee, I will go to the mountain of myrrh and to the hills of frankincense. All of you is beautiful, my darling, and there is no blemish in you.
The hills of frankincense.
Yeah, come on. I mean,
Great. Love it.
You know, there's reference here. There's sexual references here, for sure. I've come to my garden, my sister, my bride. I have plucked my myrrh with my spice. I have eaten my honeycomb with my honey. I have drunk my wine with my milk. Eat, friends, drink, and be drunk with love.
I love Be Drunk with Love. I think it's great. I love these kinds of as we all know. Yeah, it's beautiful.
What's the recent? What are you reading now? What's it called?
Oh, I forgot.
What's it about?
Well, it's about magic and angels and shapeshifters and freedom. It's about freedom. It's a quest for freedom.
Interesting.
And of course, there's romance.
And within that, do you think too it would be a quest for connection? I mean, is that part of the theme in there?
Well, whenever there's romance, there's always the struggles that the couple goes through. In part, what does my culture say? Why is this taboo? Is this the right person for me? Is this, what is the greater good of this relationship? Does this honor my duty? And ultimately, that's what this episode is about. This is just I feel like this is just a little jewel box in our lineup of episodes to say, when we are talking about wellness, you and I have been telling the audience, our audience, which is in the very, very beginning, our patients, family, and friends for 20 years, balance within yourself is so incredibly important. And we have focused on the idea of love and a loving, committed relationship as a keystone in health and wellness. Mm-hmm. And I hope that what this episode does is just opens the door a little bit so that you can decide how much further you want to go in with regards to exploring the importance of seeing sexual intimacy and sex as an opportunity to know thyself and know thy God better.
That's a great way to put it. And I'll kind of enhance with what you're saying there. I think that we've been trying to really say this for all of this for a long time. We've been trying to say that sex should be something about a true connection, that everybody is really, truly trying to strive towards connecting. They want to be understood. They want to, I've always wanted to be understood. For me personally, it wasn't until I met you that I felt that I was understood. And so that's what people are looking for, but it's all towards a vehicle to ultimately have a taste, a foretaste of God. That's what sex is. That's what sexuality and this sensuality, as it's described, is the vehicle towards being able to really, or maybe a slight window, I should say, into saying this is what you're actually really looking for. And I don't know, we've again been saying these things for a long time. I don't know if we've really fully articulated it that way. And it was exciting for me to kind of go through this process and researching and looking into this, because I feel like it's like, oh, I get it. Like, why the sex docs? Why? Just simply because of sex? No, we always knew it just wasn't that. But now it just seems of an even deeper, higher kind of thing. And that I would hope and welcome all of our listeners and viewers to look at it that way as well. And that maybe when they do, that they realize there's more to it, that helps to embolden themselves with their partner and understand there is a deeper meaning here with all of this.
John, listening to you say that about the sex talks, why the sex talks, you know how sex is often called lovemaking?
Yeah.
I don't think that was just to be polite. I think it's because sex should be the making of love. And in all the episodes that you and I have where we talk about the importance of sex, I very comfortably can put in there making love, love making, producing love as part of the benefit in procreation benefit in testicular health, benefit in self-image. Like in anything we talk about where we say good sex is important, what we're really saying is that love is important. And it sounds too cliche because we've minimized the importance of the idea of making love as if you're forming a sculpture. But really, that's what sex is. So I guess to a certain extent, as cheesy as it is, the sex docs means, the love making docs.
Well, I can certainly say I love you, dear
I love
woman.
you too.
Are you liking what you're hearing? Do you want to hear more? Do you want others to benefit from this great content? Do you want to ask us a question? Please like, subscribe, share, and comment. You can find links to all of our social media channels on all of our featured articles, basically everything that we have on our link tree at Longevity Protocol Pod. If you want to learn a little bit more about our personal lives, be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Sex Docs. Here's where you can comment, ask us questions that we'll directly address for you right in our own videos. Be sure to subscribe to our Substack. We say this all the time. That's where you can find more information about protocols, notes on this very episode you just watched. And finally, if you're ready to make a change in your health and you want to see us as a new patient in Scottsdale, Arizona, please inquire through our private practice website at hormone-zone.com.